ThatKidDouglas is a commentator with over 4,000 subscribers at the time of this recording. His channel mainly focuses on giving his opinions on niche topics in the commentary community. He also discusses drama surrounding the brony analysis community, but we're not going to talk about that because no. Instead, the main focus of this video is critiquing his attempts to break into the mainstream commentary community, and more specifically a couple of videos he's made on larger creators. For context purposes, I'd like to say that I don't have a vendetta against Douglas. He seems like a reasonable person, and we've been acquaintances for over a year now. But none of that means I can't critique the things he's done. There are certain regrettable actions I believe he's taken, and now that he's in the spotlight of the community, I feel like now is the perfect time. I'll be going over a few notable examples, each with their own problems, but all of them will focus on Douglas's heavy use of bandwagon topics. Bandwagoning is a very contentious topic in the community, and it's one of the most abundant complaints contractors make towards people in it. In mine and most people's personal opinion, you can jump on any bandwagon you want, as long as you add something to it. If not points, then new insights on points, or just poking fun at the situation if everything's already been said. But unfortunately, Douglas does not follow the same ideology as we do. He's the kind of person that believes that you can add nothing to a bandwagon and just say what everyone else has said so you can get some real easy views. There are numerous examples of this behavior, but the one I'll focus on the most is his video on Turkey Tom, as it displays perfectly how this kind of tactic can backfire on a person's content. In this video, he has 3 points against Tom: the repercussions against Tom's pedophile jokes, criticizing Tom for his behavior with Speechy, and a minor critique on his Storytime Animators video, which I'll get into more detail later. His point about Tom's pedo jokes against Mr. Enter are exactly what you think they are. He says Tom's jokes fell flat, and they hurt Mr. Enter's reputation, and then he disregards his apology by saying he just did to cover his tracks after the controversy ended. The same points everyone discussing this controversy has already brought up, without providing any new insight or expanding on the points in any way. And his point about the Speechy drama is the exact same way. He says Tom neglected to mention the fact that he harassed Speechy on Twitter in his video talking about how she and others cannot take criticism. Tom has apologized for both of these situations and has disowned both of those points, but Douglas again writes these off as Tom just covering his tracks because he got called out. He has no evidence for this conclusion and has no idea what Tom was thinking when he apologized, so he has no definitive proof of anything. He just says this to ignore the fact that Tom acknowledged his mistakes, which is apparently something Douglas cannot do himself. These points have been beaten into our heads over and over again, and Douglas has put no effort into elaborating on these points in an attempt to make his video of any value. When you're making a quote-unquote expose like this, you have to be aware of what other people have already called your subject out on. It's like making a video on Leafy and complaining about him bullying children and lying to ruin Keemstar's reputation. Sure, you'd get mad views, but that video would have no substance because everyone before you has already brought up those points in a much better way. Giving us something you've never thought about in a situation probably won't get you 30,000 views, but at least your video will have a purpose. The only thing Douglas's video adds to the table was that minor complaint about the Storytime Animators video I mentioned earlier. To summarize, Douglas says that Tom used The Odd Ones Out's name in the title as clickbait, as he's one of the most famous Storytime animators. Even though 1, The Odd Ones Out does play a role in the subject he's talking about, and Tom brought him up multiple times as examples in his video, and 2, the fact that there were 3 other names in the title, and only one of them was talked about for half the entire video. Tabs and Tim Tom only made brief appearances in one point, while Tom talked ad nauseum about Speechy for a large majority of the video. You could have brought that up because that would have been a good complaint towards the video, since Tom also didn't add much to the conversation besides the fact that he was blocked on Twitter and banned from Speechy's Discord server. But no, you had to go the superficial route and complain about him clickbaiting. Man, you're definitely innovating the medium with you complaining about a YouTuber using a bigger name for views. Our lives just wouldn't be the same without you bringing that point up. Thank you for bringing this heinous crime to light, Mr. Douglas. You really did everyone in this community a huge service. The Turkey Tom video is not the only example of this behavior. His most recent bandwagon escapade is his video on the controversy surrounding a YouTuber by the name of Jello Apocalypse, and more specifically his video telling his viewers to vote in the midterm elections. In Jello's video, he makes it seem like he isn't pushing his viewers to vote for a specific party, but he goes back on his word later by trying to guilt trip his Republican viewers to vote for his side. I try not to get political on my channel too often, but for the sake of transparency, I'd like to say that if I was of legal age to vote, I would vote Democrat for most issues. This does give me a bit of a bias, but even with that information in mind, I can agree that what Jello did in this video and his behavior after the controversy was very manipulative and scummy. But as we've learned from actual politics, our side can be pretty bad as well. Many commentators, including Douglas, made videos calling out Jello for these mistakes. On the surface, most of these videos didn't really add anything substantial to the conversation, but a large majority of these videos go in depth with the points they brought up, and some are more focused on making fun of the situation instead of arguing why these actions are wrong. There isn't really much anyone could add to this situation, so not really elaborating on points is a bit more forgivable, but as long as you're adding something like comedic value in this case, you'll be fine. But as you might have guessed, Douglas's video on the subject does not really elaborate on anything people are talking about, and he isn't really much of a comedic genius, so his video is pretty much useless. All of his points are points that have already been said, and anytime he tries to further the discussion on a point, it's again something people have already pointed out. And overall, this video doesn't really give me new insight about the topic he's talking about. There isn't really any more I could say about this because I'd just be repeating myself a lot, but just note that this video is one of many examples of Douglas clinging to a relevant topic and not really doing anything with it. And remember, I agree with the stuff Douglas is saying in this video, but the stuff I'm agreeing with has been said better by better people who make their video for a better reason. Overall, I don't hate ThatKidDouglas. He has potential, and I wouldn't really be criticizing him right now if he didn't do these things. But the fact that he jumps on any trend he can find without really having a reason to make the video besides "this is popular, it'll get me noticed," is just disappointing. These aren't even all the examples I could have shared. I didn't even bring up his 3 videos on Speechy, his videos on Leafy is Here, and his numerous videos on the mysterious Mr. Enter, which all suffer from the same problem. A bandwagon is something that you have to use with caution, and Douglas doesn't really seem to be aware of that fact. So he rides the rails without really having a good reason to, besides the fact that there were other people on the train. And as with most people who don't know how to properly handle an engine, they eventually break off a wheel, crash into a nearby canyon, and are never seen again. I've been the One Show, that was a forced metaphor, and I'll see you all in the next video.